Hello, everyone, and welcome to Exploring the Motherland African News with Garth. I'm your host, Garth, and today I am doing something different. If you have never seen my face, this is Garth in the flesh. Nice to meet you all. And let me get to it with the intro. Exploring the Motherland News with Africa, exploring the news with Garth. Sole purpose is to find news articles and developments that help promote the mission of Quest to Unite Africa. Now you are asking, Garth, what is the mission of Quest to Unite Africa? Well, I am here to tell you. The mission of Quest to Unite Africa is to promote economic development and critical infrastructure that is beneficial for the diaspora and the African continent as a whole. But here we do this through our four main initiatives. And forgive me for the noise. My lawn is being mowed right now. We do this through four initiatives: business, medical, cultural engagement, and technological innovation. So here we're not just going to talk about the news and the mission. We are going to correlate them together so people understand what we do here at Quest to Unite Africa and what we want to accomplish. So let's begin. Kenya's first nuclear power plant faces opposition from coastal residents. So basically, the gist of this story is, again, there's so much happening in Kenya, family. Like, Kenya is literally on the precipice of anarchy, I believe. That's my opinion, because there's just too much things happening in Kenya, and the people are just fed up and understand what is going on, and they can no longer be duped. Here in the story specifically, Kenya's nuclear power energy administration, whatever bureaucratic agency you want to call it, basically the government wants to put in a nuclear power plant so they rely less on hydroelectricity. And people are concerned that this nuclear power plant will completely change their way of life and will completely destroy marine life and tourism.
An area has been set in Kenya's southern county of Kilifi for the construction of the country's first nuclear facility. The project on the coast of the Indian Ocean is expected to be fully operational by 2034, but it has faced fierce opposition. We say that this project has a lot of negative effects. There will be malformed children born out of this place, fish will die, and our forest, Arabuko Sokoke, which is known to harbor birds from abroad, will be lost. The nuclear plant will cause us more harm than good. The plant is part of Kenya's strategy to reduce its reliance on hydroelectric and fossil fuel energy sources.
Our main source of income here is ecotourism. We depend on the environment. We host the only East African coastal forests. We host the Watamu Marine Park. We host the largest mangrove plantation in Kenya. We do not want nuclear to come and mess up our ecosystem.
Concerns have also been raised about the transparency of the process, land compensation, and the burden of dealing with nuclear waste. The Nuclear Power and Energy Agency has repeatedly dismissed claims that the proposed plant will cause any harm.
So you heard it. People are concerned with the government doing anything in Kenya, honestly, because they can't be trusted. I mean, there's just so many things that have been going on in Kenya with Ruto and his administration, the finance bill, the impeachment that I will talk about shortly. So there's a lot of moving parts, and basically the main point is the people of Kenya haven't been really informed about this change or this development or this new infrastructure, and they feel it's not fair and it will, again, change their way of life. So it's, this is their plea for cultural engagement by protesting something that they believe is going to destroy their way of life. And the government is more concerned with getting technological innovation in the country, but at what cost? Because if, the population is concerned or isn't well educated about this initiative or this power plant, how beneficial will it be?
Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. It looks like all is not going well for Kenya. Along with public anger against the high cost of living and political turmoil within the William Ruto government, the East African country is also facing opposition against its first nuclear power plant. Dozens of residents, activists, and environmentalists rallied in Kenya's Kilifi against the proposal to build the country's first nuclear power plant near the coastal town. The controversial plant in the Kilifi County is located around 500 kilometers from the capital, Nairobi. This county is Kenya's top coastal tourist hub. It is renowned for its pristine sandy beaches and is one of the best spots for boating and snorkeling around coral reefs. The county is also popular for bird watching in the Arabuko-Sokoke forest, a significant natural habitat for the conservation of rare and endangered species, which is also on the tentative list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The Kenyan government says the construction of the major plant will begin in 2027, but local residents are up in arms against it. They don't want the project to go through, and here's why. Kenyans have been worried about the fact that the government's plan, which was first proposed last year, would have several negative impacts on local people and the environment. Human rights groups and environmentalists have led demonstrations in Kilifi and have even handed the county governor a petition opposing the construction of the plant. The protesters raised anti-nuclear slogans. Many of them also carried placards that read, "Sitaki nuclear," Swahili for "I don't want nuclear." The protesters believe the negative effects of building the plant outweigh the positive ones.
We say that this project has a lot of negative effects. There will be malformed children born out of this place. Fish will die, and our forest Arabuko-Sokoke, which is known to harbor birds from abroad, will be lost, and the nuclear plant will cause us more harm than the benefits.
Our main source of income here is ecotourism. We depend on the environment. We host the only East African coastal forests. We host the Watamu Marine Park. We host the largest mangrove plantation in Kenya. We do not want nuclear to come and mess up our ecosystem.
The protesters have also put up demands. They want the government to involve and inform the locals of decisions regarding the nuclear plant. Secondly, they want the government to not proceed with fixing any site for the plant before laws and adequate safeguards are in place. Thirdly, the residents are seeking more scrutiny of the project. They want to know as to how the radioactive waste would be managed, among other things from the plant. Some activists have also filed petitions and lawsuits raising concerns over risks the plant might have to tourism in the event of a nuclear spill. The Kenya Anti-Nuclear Alliance has also urged the government to focus more on renewable energy sources instead.
100 billion can generate more than 2,000 megawatts. Why are we using it to generate only 1,000 for only 60 years and then it's finished? While we have renewables that can last a lifetime for generations to come. We are here to oppose. We do not want the Kilifi County government to be loaded with the burden of dealing with nuclear waste.
The government says the plant is crucial. It is expected to generate 1,000 megawatts of power when it begins its operations. The cost of construction of the plant is expected to be at 500 billion Kenyan shillings, or $3.8 billion. The project is expected to begin in 2027 and be completed by the year 2034. The government says the project is a part of Kenya's long-term strategy to reduce its reliance on hydroelectric and fossil fuel energy sources. But how does the William Ruto government plan to deal with the opposition to the plant? Will it engage with the protesters? Well, for now, they have been trying to ease their concerns with promises. The government says that the plant not just aims to increase Kenya's energy capacity and to reduce carbon emissions, but will also create new job opportunities for people. And Kenya's Nuclear Power and Energy Agency has also dismissed claims by locals and environmentalists that the proposed nuclear power plant will cause any harm in the area. The authorities say that the construction would not begin for years and that the environmental laws were under consideration. Will the government be able to pacify its citizens and address their concerns? Or will it be forced once again to bow to their demands and alter its plans for the nuclear power plant? Now, to talk more on this, we have with us Sophia Rajab, who is a lawyer joining us live from Kilifi County, the site of the proposed nuclear power plant in Kenya. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Sophia, what is the primary objection to the nuclear plant proposal, and what are your concerns regarding its impact on human and animal life in the area and the environment?
I think the first concern is the environment, because there are very, very credible resources that we have been reading and research that has been done insofar as the effect on the increase of temperature. We're talking about third generation nuclear reactors here, but rely on water for its cooling system. So in the span of the life of a nuclear power plant, we're talking 40 to 60 years, the temperature of the ocean will definitely go up. And we know that temperature is an important ecological parameter for aquatic life. So the fish will be dead, just to put it simply. And that creates an avalanche of issues that affect the environment, affect aquatic life, affect the entire ecosystem. I mean, the thing is this proposal, the proposed site is in the middle, it's smack in the middle of a UNESCO biosphere. As you said, from Arabuko Sokoke Forest to the Maida Creek to the Watamu Marine Park, which is actually a protected area. So you would wonder why the government, in its own protected area, would want to launch a nuclear power plant there. There are serious concerns with regard to the environment. And that in turn affects livelihoods, because we rely on tourism as a big economic industry for us in the coast. And so if we lose the marine park, if we lose the corals, if we lose the mangroves, then we don't have an industry, and that will mean that people's livelihoods will be affected. The plant is proposed right across from the Watamu hotel strip, so tourism will be lost, and that's also another key issue that we have.
Yes, Sophia, on that, what are the key demands of the activists?
I think one key demand is for the government to halt any plans for this nuclear power plant. As you said, they are pushing with the 2027 date to start the plant, which is absolutely illogical. It doesn't make sense. We haven't done enough public participation. We haven't done enough public scrutiny of these documents that the government is signing. We know the government has signed several MOUs with different countries, with different nations, but those MOUs have not been available to the public. So we actually don't know what the government is signing. So the first thing is for the government to halt all and any of these agreements until there is public participation, until people are told what their plans are after they've evicted communities from the area, until we're told what the mitigation plans are. So far, the government has also not signed critical conventions the Convention on Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage, the Convention on Compensation for Nuclear Damage, the Convention on Spent Fuel Management and Radioactive Waste. The government has not signed any of the critical conventions on nuclear energy. So you even wonder, how is it possible for the country to go forward with this project without having taken those steps?
And what are the social and the economic implications, you did touch on it earlier, of this nuclear plant for local communities? And why has there been such strong opposition from both environmental groups and the coastal residents?
This resistance has been going on for years. And every time there is opposition to this project by the locals, the government is not taking it seriously. As I said, if we lose the tourism industry, which is one of the biggest employers, then we've lost people's livelihoods. That means people cannot work, people cannot feed their families, people cannot pay rent, and you actually cannot live. So people's livelihoods will be lost. We're talking about the immediate employees of the hotel industry, but then also other secondary jobs, for example, fishermen, touring companies, like everybody in that community will essentially have lost their job and their main means of livelihoods. And that's a problem for us, because even as you want to evict this community from that area, where are they going to go? What jobs are they going to do? The government is telling us that this nuclear power plant is going to create 2,000 jobs. But which 2,000 jobs? Those 2,000 jobs are going to essentially eliminate thousands more jobs of people who are actually employed. And even within those 2,000 jobs, those are the jobs within the nuclear industry that we don't have the capacity to actually occupy. So it's a fallacy to think that you're going to create 2,000 jobs that we actually are not qualified for, because not many people, because of historical injustices against this community, have not got an education, have not been able to access these opportunities. So those 2,000 jobs are not for the local community. They're going to be for other people who are not local. So that's why we're resisting, because we're not being told really what the specific plans with regard to eviction, relocation, job security. And another thing that is very important is nuclear safety.
Yes.
We've talked about the issue of the lack of preparedness as well that Kenya has in terms of being able to deal with a nuclear fallout. Our government cannot even handle emergencies from floods. How can we handle a nuclear emergency? And again, we are in the Kenyan coast.
Yes.
And if you look at our history in the Kenyan coast, we also have problems of security. So the issue of nuclear proliferation is another issue that we need to talk about, and that the government hasn't really explained to us how they're going to ensure that there are mitigation measures to no nuclear proliferation, because we have terrorism.
Right.
We've had terrorist attacks before. And so there's uranium.
Yes, Sophia, yes.
Yes, that's really going to affect the security of the people around this area. So we have very, very big problems with the pace in which the government is going, without ensuring that the blocks are taken care of and addressed.
Yes. And has the government proposed any measures to ensure safety and sustainability of the nuclear plant, particularly in light of potential natural disasters like floods, as an example?
Right, and I'd remind you, Alison, and maybe many of your viewers might not know this or remember this, is that we faced a tsunami here in the coast 20 years ago, right? Which had devastating effects that lasted very long. So if we compare ourselves with Japan and the accident that happened in their nuclear power plant, we will have no means whatsoever, and I can say that with no fear or favor, that our county, Kilifi County, and by extension, the Kenyan government does not have the capacity to handle a nuclear accident, whether it is a minor accident or a major accident.
Yes.
We do not have the capacity, we do not have the know-how, we do not have the facilities to be able to manage a nuclear fallout. And before we get into establishing a nuclear plant, perhaps it's important for us to make sure that we can handle accidents. Right now, our hospitals don't even have medicine. You understand? So it's a tall order for the government to tell us, we'll handle it when we get there. No, we don't want to handle it when we get there. We want to handle it now. And that is the demand that we're making of this government, is to halt everything until this project has undergone enough public scrutiny and all of our concerns are actually addressed.
Yeah. And Sophia, if not this project, how can Kenya align with global trends towards renewable energy?
We already have renewables in our energy mix. We have invested heavily in solar, geothermal, in hydro, and in wind. We have made so many.
Okay, family. So all the clips and news articles will be in the description box. So basically, you heard what that sister said from Kenya. She said that there wasn't enough public scrutiny, basically cultural engagement with the community as to what the absolute consequences of bringing in the nuclear power plant, the sleight of hand in, Kenya and Ruto's administration and his government is to basically keep the the public ignorant as possible, so they could slip in different initiatives that were signed and or agreed upon with foreign nations and without any public scrutiny. So it's all just, corruption and failed national interest, choosing foreign interest over your own people's interest. And again, we are speaking about economic development. So if you put in a nuclear power plant that completely destroys one industry that you're already thriving in and known for, how does that implicate all the other people who already have a way of life and don't want it to change? That's very, what's the word? Counterproductive. Honestly, like, if you wanted to help the people of Kenya with their renewable energy source, you would first, train them, allow them to see different, measures or indicators of what is going on with the power plant, how much pollution is being produced, its effects on the environment. And that's where here at QTUA we have experts or brothers and sisters who have consulted in sustainability in governmental projects to make sure that the public knows exactly what they're getting into and what the government is signing. Because again, Kenya's already facing a huge economic debt problem because of Ruto, obviously. And then also you see this pattern in other countries. If you saw last week's episode in Ghana, the people are mad and protesting because of mining exploits and how mining is destroying their way of life and destroying, poisoning water, destroying crops, destroying one of the, biggest crops is the cocoa plant. The unchecked mining practices, undermines their economy as well. So you see this pattern in countries where all the puppets are, and it's not a coincidence. So how we help our people in Kenya is to continue to help them expand their renewable energy resources that are already working and haven't, polluted the environment. So we can expand it through energy consulting, developing new ways to expand it. The one sister there was talking about expanding it based on megawatts, and there's experts who can project that, develop that and help the people research that so they are successful, instead of relying on a corrupt government that continues to take foreign aid or foreign business at their own interest. All right, the next story. Kenya Deputy President Gachagua pleads not guilty in Senate impeachment trial. So if you don't know what's going on in Kenya, President William Ruto is basically trying to impeach his running mate, his deputy president, basically the vice president. He has accused this vice president of being the sole cause for the anti-government protests, which is false. Also, he has been accused of stoking ethnic, tension and all other things. And this is basically Ruto's way of saying, look, I'm rooting out the corruption out of my administration. It's basically his way of legitimacy to rule. And the people of Kenya are not going for it, because if you're going to impeach your running mate and your vice president, your administration has to go as well. They're not going to just want the vice president to go. They're going to want Ruto to go. And this is just going to stoke more dissension in Kenya. It's just going to cause more strife and political turmoil and just, again, anarchy could happen. I mean, it's just not out of the realm or scope, because there's so much dissension and corruption that the people are tired of it. And they know that this is political theater, because, the government isn't fixing the problem of the finance bill, which was proposed by Ruto back in August or July this summer, to be exact. And it was found out that this finance bill was recommended by the IMF, the loan sharks of the West. And people are mad because Ruto is putting initiatives based on funding from foreign entities that people can't see or don't have the bookkeeping of the numbers of what's going on and what deals are being made. So it's just very duplicitous on all accounts. So let me just play the clips so we could get a better understanding.
Kenya's vice president has Wednesday and Thursday to convince senators and save his position. Rigathi Gachagua, who faces impeachment, pleaded not guilty in a Senate hearing Wednesday to all allegations, including corruption, inciting ethnic division, and support for historic anti-government protests. His legal team will cross-examine witnesses during 2 days, then the Senate will vote Thursday evening. Court rulings this week allowed the Parliament and Senate to proceed with the impeachment debate despite concerns over irregularities raised by the Deputy President's lawyers. The 59-year-old politician has called the charges leveled against him politically motivated. Supporters of his and opponents clashed in early October at public forums over the impeachment motion against him, which was introduced in Parliament by the ruling alliance. The case highlights the friction between Gachagua and President William Ruto, something that Ruto once vowed to avoid after his past troubled relationship as deputy to Kenya's previous president, Uhuru Kenyatta. Gachagua could be the first sitting deputy president impeached in Kenya's history.
Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. News just in is that the three-judge bench that was empaneled by the Chief Justice Martha Koome and presided over by Eric Ogola and made up by Justices Anthony Mrima and Frida Mugambi have declined to issue the conservatory order sought to stop the Senate from proceeding with the second leg of the impeachment of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. And that did happen, of course, yesterday when they made the prayers before the three-judge bench in a day that was equally filled with court cases and last-minute efforts by the lead team, the legal team of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who earlier in the day, yesterday, also sought similar orders from the High Court, and Justice Chacha Mwita in declining to issue the much sought after conservatory order by the team of the deputy president, said that the court could not stop the Senate from hearing that is set to start today on Wednesday at the Senate following the impeachment of the deputy president on Tuesday last week by the National Assembly. Then thereafter, similar prayers were made before the three-judge bench of Eric Ogola, Frida Mugambi, and Anthony Mrima. And the pictures you are seeing live on your screens at the moment is of the just concluded case at the High Court, where the ruling was made by Justices Eric Ogola, Frida Mugambi, and Anthony Mrima, who have declined to issue the conservatory order sought by the team, the legal team of the deputy president, to stop the Senate from proceeding with the second leg of the impeachment of the deputy president. And they said in their ruling that public interest in this case tilts in favor of Parliament to first complete its legislative process and mandate. The applicant will not suffer prejudice if Senate proceeds with the impeachment, is what the three judges have said. In also declining to issue the order sought by Gachagwa's legal team, it said the three judges also said that he will not suffer any consequences as a result, and they say that he can move to court to challenge the outcome in the aftermath of the conclusion of the process by the Senate. Petition will not be lost. The court said it can still adjudicate the outcome of parliamentary process according to the ruling by the three-judge bench. So with me in studio still is the former Law Society of Kenya president and advocate, Eric Dauri, who is with us here to give us an account of going through all these issues that have been developing in court since yesterday and the concurrent court cases which had happened yesterday. One determination was made yesterday, the other some few minutes ago, and I want to take his account here before bringing in my team, which is in Parliament, and to provide us with the live links from what will be happening at the Senate in the course of the day today. And Mr. President, thank you for staying with us. Much appreciated for your time.
Thank you, Ayub.
Was this expected?
Yes, I think that I'm not surprised by that decision. I think that it is the correct decision by the courts. The courts on this instant have been consistent. I think in the 24 petitions that have been filed, are they 24 or 25? We even lose count. They have been spot on in terms of getting it right. Mm-hmm. We saw that the court in Kirinyaga gave certain directions that were very good in terms of enhancing public participation, that then the National Assembly did comply with. So at the right time, in terms of the various infractions that have been brought to court, the court gave what was a measured intervention in a manner that was intended to aid the process. And so you look at it and you can see the balancing that the court had to do. Look at it and say, okay, fine, 1 day for public participation may actually not be enough, and it might not go across the entire country, and then make that intervention. And I think that in the proper way of doing things, that would perhaps be the right manner in which the courts should handle this process, considering that the impeachment process per se, and let's look at it. The Constitution requires a motion to be moved, a motion to be supported by 2/3 in Parliament. Once that has been done, prima facie, you have a proper motion. So to
I'm going to save you all the political and legal legislative jargon here, family. Basically, this claim of this deputy president's impeachment will probably be unsubstantiated, right? And the government is basically within themselves, basically trying to way to legitimize him being a scapegoat. But again, we will follow this story based on the reaction of the Kenyan people who are already tired of the corruption going on in William Ruto's administration. That's the main point. You know, William Ruto, instead of, you know, fixing the problems of economic debt and inflation and literally every economic downturn you could possibly face, instead of addressing that, he wants to impeach his running mate, who he vowed to never stoke tension with, who he also vowed to never turn against or, you know, use his political power to retaliate. I mean, how, you know, how can the people trust Ruto when he thinks he could just make his cabinets go away and it's all good, when the root cause of all the problems is him, and he's putting in these initiatives that don't benefit his people, nor will it ever. And we help our people by making initiatives based on what they value or what they have a knowledge in. That's what cultural engagement basically is. So the Kenyan people are known for, they have great agriculture potential, and their ability to grow crops is very, very what's the word, exponential, and it could be better, and it could also help them reap what they sow in their land. So we could make initiatives that help with farming and how they could treat the soil, because there is a soil acidity problem there. And I'm sure we have great people who know their land restoration techniques, who know how to grow things and how to revitalize soil. That would be a great initiative to help our people in Kenya and have them not rely on puppets. And then we can then, you know, benefit from one another through strategic partnership. That's basically what we preach here at Quest Unite Africa, and that's our mission. And speaking of puppets, the next story, Ghanaia's president of Akufo-Addo says security in Sahel has worsened since French troops left. So if you were listening or watching our show this morning at Quest Unite Africa Friday Discussions, we were talking about the Sahel and decolonization and its implications on the foreign stage. And we see Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, the Alliance Sahel states, kick out all the Western influence. We also saw them disavow from ECOWAS, which was an initiative, you know, set up by the Western powers that be to make a coalition promising economic improvement and integration, but more so importantly, border security, because there was a lot of terrorism and a lot of instability in that region, and it was contrived, meaning that it was on purpose. And it's been found out throughout Mali. Mali specifically has made the connection of them having terrorism from the West sponsored to, you know, stoke instability. And once a country is unable to secure its borders and unable to, you know, maintain its sovereignty, that's when Western influence could go in there and just start grabbing resources, a penny on the dollar, and doing all this other stuff to, you know, basically strategically, you know, drown them out of their resources, or just, you know, completely bogard their progress. And, we have, there is Western puppets like the Ghanaian president, who's going to always try to legitimize the status quo, try to, say that ECOWAS is a good initiative, and to fracture that relationship is going to cause more instability, and to, it's going to cause, more division between African countries. Is kind of foolhardy and just ridiculous. He's just basically a puppet.
Speaking of security, French troops left. Those countries said, we're going to take care of security ourselves, bring Russian mercenaries or whatever. You are a neighbor of Burkina Faso. From your viewpoint, has the situation worsened since the French troops have withdrawn, or has it improved?
It's certainly not improved.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my dear kings and queens, ladies and gentlemen. As you heard at the beginning, President of Ghana, President Nana Akufo, has said that the last deterioration of peace and security in Sahel region after the expelled of France military or France troops. So do you agree with President Nana that maybe this time the peace and security is too bad compared with the time when France was present in these countries? Of course, let us hear a full story from President Nana Akufo concerning about peace and security in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso.
Thank you. I want to begin with the situation in the region. In July, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger have created a so-called Confederation of Sahel states. They've had announced that they would withdraw from the regional bloc ECOWAS.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you hear that? How he called it so-called. You see the he's the slight condescending tone. This reporter, and trying to downplay the legitimacy of this alliance. It's kind of funny, but don't mind me. I'm going to continue.
It argued that this could signal the end of ECOWAS.
It has to be a worrying situation. ECOWAS was a 50-year-old organization, and until this decision on the part of these three states, it had been an important homogeneous bloc. So for three of them, and they're all founder members of ECOWAS, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, for them to come to this situation is regrettable. There can be no two ways about it. Now I don't believe there's any serious-minded West African who will be happy at what has happened. What then matters is, what are we going to do about it?
Because they say we're going out.
Well, it's their right. I mean, because even the treaty that binds us all together has provisions for you to walk out. So that's something that is foreseeable. But I don't believe it's in their interest. I don't believe it's in the interest of the wider ECOWAS bloc.
Exactly, Team Truth. And let me make sure my is my audio coming in good? Okay, it is. Sorry about that. But yeah, the Ghanaian president should worry about his own backyard, because as I said before, you could look this up. There is a widespread mining protest in Ghana, and he has no concern for the environment and the sustainability of it, while people are complaining that mining has gone, people have been mining and destroying without care for the environment, and that negligence is going to destroy their way of life as well. So he should be paying attention to that. But when you are propped up by Western entities, your priorities aren't straight. So that's no surprise.
To allow this to happen.
So there's still hope for a solution?
Not more than hope. We have to continue to work at it, to make sure that we can, at the end of the day, find some common ground that will allow them to look at the return to ECOWAS. We have to do that. They are three important members of our community. and we can't just wash our hands off them.
Right. What they've done is wash their hands off ECOWAS. When it came to promising transitions, there were sanctions were lifted. They played around with ECOWAS, and the intentions are pretty clear. They want to stay in power.
That's obvious, and that has to.
You were taken for a ride.
Well, it may well be, but whatever be the case.
Sorry, I'm going to pause a lot because this is nonsense. What do you mean they want to rule? You have they want a sovereignty. You know, that's ridiculous. They have a right to their own sovereignty. They don't have to, you know, behest at ECOWAS. Who's ECOWAS to go into, you know, Burkina Faso and all these other countries and tell them what to do? You're not a natural born citizen. You're not indigenous to the land. It's not yours. So where do you go off in telling people they want to rule, or that's like a bad thing? Again, all this downplaying and all this ad hominem, you know, language is kind of like brainwashing, or kind of like the way that they use media and propaganda to make, you know, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso some bad boogeyman place, but it's not. It really isn't. They are just trying to fight for self-determination, sovereignty, and the right to control their resources, so then they could economically develop and progress and build critical infrastructure. You know, all those initiatives that ECOWAS has promised haven't come to fruition. So what else are they going to do? Why would they continue to stay in ECOWAS if it hasn't benefited them?
That cannot mean that we will stop wanting to work to see what the possibilities are of a reintegration of the three countries back into ECOWAS. There's no reason for us to continue to wash our hands off them. Even if they want to wash their hands off, we cannot wash our hands off them.
Let's take the example of Niger.
Right.
Niger, there's a coup. Elected President Mohamed Bazoum arrested. ECOWAS says we want him out, and we're threatening military intervention.
It hasn't happened.
1 year later, military intervention is off the table, unless I missed something. And President Bazoum is in jail, and no one says anything.
It is an unacceptable position.
Should there have been a military intervention?
I don't want to get.
Again, what right do you have to go in there and with what military other than your military from your nation that you're trying to pretend that you aren't causing disruption in that region? It's kind of funny.
Into that discussion, it didn't happen,
and it won't happen.
Well, how states evolve and how policies evolve, you cannot predict. But at the moment, it's not happening, and Bazoum is still in prison. I think that his position is unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable that a democratically elected leader like Bazoum should be treated in the manner in which he has been treated. Essentially, people are throwing mud in the face of the Nigerian people. We have to continue to insist on his freedom. As far as I'm concerned, his freedom, unconditional freedom, is still very much on the table, and we will continue to agitate for it and to be part of the ECOWAS demand that he be freed as soon as possible.
Speaking of security, French troops left. Those countries said, we're going to take care of security ourselves, bring Russian mercenaries or whatever. You are a neighbor of Burkina Faso. From your viewpoint, has the situation worsened since the French troops have withdrawn, or has it improved?
It's certainly not improved. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think just yesterday or the day before, we saw a massacre of large numbers of civilians again, and they are right on our border, so we have a good idea of what is going on. The security situation does not appear to have improved, and the need for us to find a solution to this terrorist insurgency in West Africa has grown stronger and stronger.
Are you obviously worried, I assume from what you said, about the state of democracy in West Africa? There are coups. There are also the issue of presidential terms, being changed. We change the constitution.
It's a difficult period. You'll have these up and downs, and right now
you're going down.
It's down. But I'm confident that the majority of people in West Africa continue to have great faith. I mean, for instance, when people had doubts about which way it was going to go in Senegal, you saw the big turnout of people when the vote came in Senegal for them to elect their new leaders. The same in countries like Ghana. When the polls open, you will see the numbers of Ghanaians who are going to go out openly, freely to express their view as to who and what should be the next course of action in our countries. So the desire of our people to live within a democratic culture, to me, is incontestable.
Right. In your country, obviously, this is your last weeks as president. You've decided not to change the constitution to be able to run again. It never crossed your mind?
Never. That was never part.
Yes, welcome back, kings and queens. You heard a lot from President Nana Akufo. I would like to hear from you. What is your point of view from what you heard from President Nana Akufo? It looks like President Nana Akufo are not happy with the expelled of French troops in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, and also still unhappy with the decisions made by these countries to leave or to withdraw from ECOWAS. It looks like Mr. Nana still has hope that these countries will come back to join their community. West African community means ECOWAS, but already these countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, confirmed that they will not go back to ECOWAS. President Nana has spoken during the United Nations General Assembly that these countries still bring back democracy in West Africa. So I don't know why President Nana is not talking about exploitation that cause all the things. Sometimes we lament these leaders, soldiers, but we forget the root causes of all these things. In West Africa, these countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, they have defined themselves that these are not coups, these are just liberation from the chains of exploitation and neocolonialism from France. So those who are defining that these are military coups or these are just coup d'etat, they are wrong because they have not seen what France did. For instance, they given an example that let us look for the country such as Niger. Niger is the country that is famous for producing uranium, but to power or to produce electricity in European countries. But look, the lives and the situation of electricity and energy in Niger, you find that the people have no electricity. They need electricity, but they have uranium that can manage to have enough electricity, but those resources have been taken out. So that's why these soldiers decided to take responsibilities to make sure that these resources are going to benefit the majority. And recently you heard about Niger forming the Uranium National Company to make sure that they can manage uranium. Even Burkina Faso, recently you heard about withdrawal of license permit to Western companies, especially in gold mining. So those are things that these countries are fighting for. So when you say these countries maybe are destabilizing democracy, they are pulling back democracy, that is not true. I think as a people of Africa, we need to address the root causes of our challenges. Today we have conflict in Democratic Republic of Congo, but we are not speaking the truth about what is going on in Democratic Republic of Congo. What is the main causes of all these problems? But what we say, maybe Kagame is the problem, or Kagame is this M23 and this, but we forget where, if these minerals are being exploited in Democratic Republic of Congo, where these minerals are going to, who is buying these minerals? Those are questions that we need to ask. So sometimes we Africans, we learn away from the truth. We want to sometimes to sugarcoat things, but let us swallow the bitter truth that this is the reality and this is what we should do. So kings and queens, I think as the people of Africa, as I said many times, we need to find a way on how we can have a meeting, because it looks like African Union and other regional bodies has failed to address these challenges. You know, nowadays the young people are lamenting that how can we, as the people of Africa, own all these wealth, means and resources, and yet we are still poor. But the countries with no those resources are the richest countries. For instance, you find countries such as France has no any gold mine, but France own a lot of gold. So I think those are things, and those are critical questions that many Africans are always asking, that how should be, how can be hit that we Africans, despite we are living in the continent full of minerals, and yet we are poor. So what does this mineral means to us? How can these minerals change our lives? If Europeans, Americans, or Chinese who have known these minerals are becoming rich through our minerals, how about we Africans? So I think, kings and queens, those are critical questions that we need as the people of Africa to ask. So, you know, we can speak here, maybe even 2 days, whatever, but without addressing the root causes of all challenges, of all problems, we cannot reach the point, or we can not find the best solution. The best solution is to address the root causes of the challenges. So, kings and queens, let me say thank you for your time, for watching, for listening. Please don't forget to share our videos, and also
Okay, that brother is Make Africa Great. He understands it. Please subscribe to his channel. He has great information as well. He understands that this is a fight for resources, and ECOWAS's legitimacy is not, what's the word? Legitimacy. He knows that the ECOWAS, what it promotes and what it's stating to accomplish is all farce, and he understands that it is all basically a foothold that they have in countries to promote that word, democracy, because we here in America know how great democracy works for people that look like us, right? But that propaganda, you know, they keep on saying democracy, democracy, like that has ever worked or hasn't had a, you know, a component of colonialism, because it's not like Africans were always in a democratic nation. I mean, they were pretty, you know, civilized without democracy. So, I mean, what was the goal of democracy other than to use it as a tool to completely uproot Africa's sovereignty, so then you could reap the resources? But again, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso came together, culture engagement, to say, what do we need to do to protect our borders? Let's align. Let's start making passports, and let's start making other initiatives that protects our people within this alliance, so we can then legitimize our sovereignty, and then we can take control of our resources. And then, you know, the French will not have any way of influencing the countries or getting back in there just for the sole purpose of, taking their resources and depleting them of everything they have. And, you see our people are smarting up now in the Sahel and West Africa. They continue to protest. And yes, he is a big sample. He's selling out his own land to France and the United States. Now he's talking about Burkina Faso and Niger. He needs to worry about his own backyard. Again, you could look this up. Ghana and is going through a environmental crisis due to mining practices that have been unchecked. And last time I checked, he is the president of Ghana, so he knows that. And what has he done to, rectify that? Team Truth says there's an upcoming election in Ghana in December. It's going to be interesting to see how the people will vote this time. Honestly, Team Truth, who knows if they're going to even have an election and the people are just going to do something. Honestly, there's just too much, tension going on, as it is appropriately titled Africa's on Fire, because there's so much revealing of the corruption, and the people are just tired. They're not going to have it anymore. Right, in the next video,
Africa, where we break down the biggest geopolitical developments across Africa. Today, we're diving into a statement that's making waves across the continent. Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo recently said that since the withdrawal of French troops from the Sahel, the security situation there has gotten worse. Guess where he said that and when? Here it comes.
Has the situation worsened since the French troops have withdrawn, or has it improved?
It's certainly not improved. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think just yesterday or the day before, we saw a massacre of large numbers of civilians again, and they are right on our border, so we have a good idea of what is going on.
In an interview with French TV, France 24, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo said he hoped Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger would rejoin the economic community of West African states' regional bloc. He said that the decision of the military juntas in the three countries to withdraw from ECOWAS was a setback. Then he dropped a bombshell. He said in answer to a question that the security situation has worsened since the departure of French troops from the Sahel region last year. Now hear it yourself. And I've got some thoughts and questions about what he's saying and what it all means. Is he calling for the return of French troops? What is ECOWAS, the West African bloc that he's a part of, doing about the crisis? And here's a big one. Is relying on foreign troops really the solution for Africa's security problems? Stay with me, because this reaction video is going to ask some tough questions, and I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts in the comments. Is foreign intervention the answer? Or is there a better path forward for African nations like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Ghana? Before we continue, just a gentle reminder to like and share our videos. Also, subscribe to the channel to stay informed on the latest African economic, political, and social developments, and explore how global geopolitics impact the continent. Now let's continue. Okay, before we jump into the critical analysis, let's quickly set the scene. French troops were deployed in the Sahel, countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, for nearly a decade under what's called Operation Barkhane. The mission? To help combat the rise of Islamist insurgents and extremists that were destabilizing the region. But in 2022, after mounting criticism, both from locals and governments, France decided to pull out its forces. And now, President Akufo-Addo is saying that security has worsened since then. So let me ask you, do you agree with him? Do you think foreign troops should still be in the Sahel? Comment below. I want to know your thoughts. But here's where it gets interesting. Akufo-Addo is a key figure in ECOWAS, a bloc that's supposed to be responsible for promoting peace and stability in West Africa. So let's ask the real question here. What is ECOWAS doing about the situation? Are they stepping up, or are they relying too heavily on foreign powers like France? This is where I think we need to look critically at the role of ECOWAS, the economic community of West African states. Now, ECOWAS has been in the spotlight recently mostly for its tough stance on military coups, like we've seen in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. But is it doing enough when it comes to the actual security situation in the Sahel? Because if President Akufo-Addo is saying the situation is worse without French troops, then my question is, what is ECOWAS doing to fill that gap? Shouldn't ECOWAS, as an African institution, be stepping up more? Is this another case of an African organization waiting on outside powers to solve its problems? Let me know what you think below. Now let's talk about Ghana. Akufo-Addo has pointed out that the security situation is deteriorating, but what is Ghana doing to help address the crisis? Ghana is a stable and relatively prosperous nation in West Africa, right? It's often looked to as a leader in the region. But in this situation, it feels like Ghana and other ECOWAS nations are taking a back seat. Why aren't we hearing more about regional cooperation to stabilize the Sahel? Why aren't Ghanaian forces, for example, playing a more active role in supporting their northern neighbors? Why have they left Burkina Faso to act as fodder and taking all the heat in stopping the jihadists from moving south into Ghana? And let me ask you this. Should Ghana be doing more to help Mali and Burkina Faso, both of which are right on its doorstep? I mean, if the Sahel falls further into chaos, it's only a matter of time before that instability starts creeping into Ghana. I'm really curious.
Here, I'll answer his question. It's not going to ever go to Ghana because Ghana is protected by the same people who are sponsoring said insecurity and terrorism. So that answers your question. And ECOWAS could be a coup in and of itself because it was set up by foreign entities without the interest of African nations who claim to be in said economic community. So, yeah.
What do you think? Is Ghana and ECOWAS doing enough? Or are they leaving it to outside powers to handle the situation? Hit the comments and let's get a conversation going. Now here's the big question. Is President Akufo-Addo subtly suggesting that French troops should come back? Because if he's saying things have gotten worse since they left, it almost sounds like he's advocating for the return of foreign forces. But here's where we need to pause and ask, is that really the best solution? Let's be real. Foreign troops have been in Africa for decades, and it's not like they've solved our problems. If anything, you could argue that foreign intervention often leads to more instability in the long run. So, when Akufo-Addo talks about the worsening situation, is he ignoring the deeper issues? Issues like poverty, poor governance, and the lack of infrastructure that actually fuel extremism. Foreign troops on African soil have been severally accused of being there for their own economic interest first before anything else. For the French, it is all about making sure that their economic interests are not threatened, while they pillage and exploit the resources of African states. It is unfortunate also that Nana Akufo-Addo was not asked, neither did he mention the giant economic leaps being witnessed in the Sahel countries. They are building essential industries, taking control of their mineral resources, and developing energy resources despite the West, withholding the so-called development aid. They have also shunned international financial institutions with their controversial loans. Is it not unfortunate also that the French TV channel did not ask this information from a citizen of any of the Sahel countries? Rather, it was from the president of Ghana that has been critical of the Sahel regimes. President Nana Akufo-Addo, who has just weeks to leave office, is definitely not the best candidate to make this assessment. So I ask, shouldn't the focus be on building African capacity to solve African problems? Wouldn't it be better for ECOWAS or the African Union to create a strong, unified response rather than relying on France or any other foreign power for security? Which brings me to a deeper point. Is the real issue here the withdrawal of French troops, or are there underlying problems that no one's addressing? Think about it. Why are these insurgent groups thriving in the Sahel? It's not just because the French left. It's because these areas are dealing with extreme poverty, lack of governance, and radicalization. So even if foreign troops come back, they're only addressing the symptoms, not the root causes of the problem. I think this is where African nations need to start focusing more. What if we invested in development as much as we do in military solutions? What if the real solution to the Sahel's crisis was more about education, jobs, and local governance than just guns and tanks? What do you all think? Are we focusing on the wrong solutions? Let me know in the comments. Now let's talk solutions. Instead of calling for the return of French troops, what are the alternatives? For one, we could strengthen regional forces. There's the G5 Sahel Joint Force, which includes countries like Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. But they've been underfunded and undersupported. What if African nations came together to really back this force? What if ECOWAS stepped up with more funding, training, and resources? Another solution could be investing in long-term development. If we address the root causes of instability, like lack of jobs, education.
Again, I gotta get used to this layout. Again, all the videos and articles will be in the description box. So basically, I will give the solutions. We help support we help support Alliance Sahel states by giving them initiatives that help build up their infrastructure and help them thrive economically, and help them with the pursuit of keeping their sovereignty and also allowing them to have control of their resources. That's how we support them. We can make initiatives that allow them to, have better training or job skill development, things that could help, innovate whatever poor infrastructure the French have left. Because I've been to Burkina Faso and I've seen what has, the aftermath of their intervention and what the country looks like, which is, unfortunate. But, Captain Ibrahim Traore has made it his focus to fix, and he is making a good on his promises, and he has, brought back a sense of national interest and a sense of a new cultural shift where they will not do deals that are bad and are not, at the forefront of national interest with said deals if they are made without with foreign entities, excuse me. So that's how we help the Alliance Sahel states, by continuing to make initiatives that promote economic development and critical infrastructure for their benefit. And a few people have commented, critical questions need to be asked to the Ghana's Ghanaian president nominees about their anticipated future connections with the Sahel. If they don't provide correct answer, no vote for that man. Exactly. There is a huge, I don't know if he knows, but the implications of what he's saying is very dire, because he's basically, unassumingly saying that French intervention is needed, and then he shows his hand, because we see what French intervention has done to the region, and for him to continue to promote it and to support it just shows you what side of the spectrum he is on. So he wants to say that the Sahel is stoking, tension and conflict when, he continues to promote an entity that does all those things. So it's kind of, hypocritical. Once the Most High Yah opened the airways for African people, those puppet leaders can't hide. I'm looking for the European countries to take away the ill-gotten blood money and homes received. Exactly. It's too late. Brothers like Make Africa Great, who has almost 1 million followers, knows what's going on, and they are moving different. And, for a lack of a better term, how we say it here, they are on code. I see that social media is a great force that the elite didn't fully anticipate. Crowdsource social documenting is opening the eyes of a lot of our people. Exactly. They cannot control everything. They don't have the power of the media as they once had. There's a lot of young people in Africa. You know, their population, 60% of their population is from, you know, from 18 under, if I'm correct. So they understand and they know who their op is. And the last and final story, I will probably, you know, go a little bit fast for the sake of time. Economic hardship and hunger blamed for deaths in Nigeria, deadly tanker explosion. So basically, family, Nigeria, another nation with a puppet in it. If you don't know who that is, look it up. His last name is Tinubu. Bolo Tinubu, I believe, is his full name, but Tinubu is his last name, and he's been, you know, going on trips to go see French leaders while this country is facing this country is facing the hugest, you know, economic crisis and hunger crisis it's faced since its conception. So that lends to the point of what is he doing to help fix this instead of going to, you know, Western sponsored trips to go talk to his real masters instead of helping the people of Nigeria. And there's a fuel problem in Nigeria, and that confounds everything else with a hunger problem, because you need fuel to power your house to cook. You need fuel to power whatever tools you need to use to farm. You need the fuel to power whatever things you need to get food or to run your business, and that is a underlying issue that the people are facing. And then once they are in these destitute conditions, they do things that are completely out of character, out of the desperation, such as scooping up fuel at a tanker, scooping up fuel at a tanker, an oil tanker spill, which is absolutely crazy because it cost some of them their lives.
Lagos residents on Wednesday said economic hardship and hunger were linked to the death of people who were scooping up fuel from an overturned gasoline tanker when it exploded.
I blame both we, the people. I also blame government. Because if the government is doing the right thing to ensure that citizens are good, that the welfare of citizens are priority to them, all this will not happen. But when people look around and see there's hunger everywhere, there's poverty everywhere, people are looking for what to help them. So because of that, they don't see the consequences of what they are doing. The first impression is, let me scoop and sell, or let me see can use.
Deadly tanker accidents are common in Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, and there's lack of efficient railway system to transport cargo.
No one in their right senses would go around scooping for hunger. When you travel around Nigeria, what you see is hunger. And when people get hunger, they get hungry, they get desperate. And I see desperation in the face of average Nigeria. People are hungry. There are people who are going to bed tonight without food. Now, when that person sees an opportunity to make money from scooping for, they will take that chance. I think we need to do better as a community. We need to do better as a nation. People cannot just continue to live a life of hunger. It's not fair on the human, and it's not fair on Nigerians.
Residents of Majia were in mourning on Wednesday as they held a mass burial for the victims. Most of the bodies were unrecognizable, emergency services said.
Shifting focus to Nigeria now, which is reeling from a tragic accident. Over 150 people have been killed in northern Nigeria due to a fuel tank explosion in one of Nigeria's worst accidents in recent times. A fuel tanker overturned on Tuesday after the driver lost control of the vehicle. The explosion was caused after the crash resulted in the spilling of petrol that it was carrying. Over 140 people are also injured in the tragedy, with some in very critical condition.
Truly what happened, I was there when the whole thing started. I scooped oil and went home to drop it, and I picked up my bike to come back, but it developed a fault. While fixing it, I then heard the loud explosion.
The incident occurred in Nigeria's northern state of Jigawa. The driver lost control of the tanker on the Jigawa State Expressway at about 530 kilometers north of the capital, Abuja. But the tragedy worsened when several residents crowded around the vehicle to collect fuel that had spilled onto the road and in drains. Soon, a massive explosion tore through crowds of people who had rushed to the scene to try and scoop up the fuel, but ultimately became victims of the ill-fated accident.
Thinking that it's an ouf. They didn't know, little did they know that it is a cause of death. So some of them that engaged in fetching this fuel were caught up with the fire. In the process of taking, there is a flash of light and the place caught fire.
The incident highlights two grave concerns Nigeria faces. First, it is the fuel crisis. People are desperate for fuel amid scarcity and rising cost of living. Despite being a major oil producer, Nigeria imports most of its fuel needs. This is because it has very little working refining capacity. The fuel scarcities have been more frequent since President Bola Tinubu removed the costly fuel subsidies in 2023. Since then, the fuel crisis has tripled in some of the states. Last week, the state oil company hiked prices for the second time in just over a month. Due to the frequent fuel shortages, Nigeria witnesses long queues at petrol stations, causing traffic and other disruptions. The second biggest concern in Nigeria are the dangerous roads. Fuel tanker explosions and accidents are common in Nigeria, often caused by the poor state of roads and badly maintained vehicles. As per a World Health Organization report last year, annual road accident deaths in Nigeria to be closer to 40,000. Nigeria's Federal Road Safety Commission recorded over 1,500 accidents involving fuel tankers that caused 535 deaths. Just last month, at least 59 people died when a fuel tanker collided with a truck carrying passengers and cattle in northwestern Niger State. Now, these incidents come at a time when Nigerians are increasingly frustrated over the country's economic woes and bad governance. Hundreds of Nigerians have taken to the streets demanding solutions from the Tinubu government. However, such a growing frequency of tragic incidents highlights that there has been very little progress.
First Post decodes the
All right, you heard it, family. The Nigerian people need help. We help them by building up their critical infrastructure. Those who have talents and skills in traffic management and highway development, that would be vital and crucial and would also help them with these accidents and to, mitigate that problem of poorly maintained roads, vehicles. I mean, if there could be an initiative to have, state-sponsored vehicles made in Nigeria, I mean, the possibilities are endless to help feed our people. We can make a farming initiative to grow food and then have that food sent to them, or we can help them grow food in their land and whatever agriculture they have. We can also help them with their energy distribution and plan for that. Also, a huge thing that is needed is city planning and urban development. Those people who are versed in city planning know all the different multifaceted things that are needed to make sure that a city or town is up and running and is sustainable and is safe for all the citizens who reside there. There's so many things we could do to help family. And, this is the show, today's show, episode 15, Exploring the Motherland, Africa's on Fire. Thank you for joining me, family. Like, share, and subscribe. And if your heart is led to helping out, you could always just hit that that money sign and send a super sticker or a super gift. And till next time, next Friday at the same time, 10 a.m., I will see you all. Enjoy the rest of your day and your Shabbat.